welcome to another video. And today we're reading The Puppy Plays Snowball. Now I did tell you that we were going to be moving on to The Puppy Plays Rascal after this. I know I've done book 1, book 3, book 2, book 4, but after that we'll be moving on to Buddy. So to be honest, Buddy is my favourite book, because there's a special surprise in it that I'm not going to reveal because that's spoiler. Alright, let's get right into it. Chapter 4. Over the weekend, the puppy got better and better. Charles and Lizzie gave him his worm medicine, and they fed him lots of little meals. If they waited too long before feeding him, he would bark his high, short barks to remind them. They kept his ears clean and put on the special cream Dr. Gibson had given them. They made sure the puppy always had plenty of water, even if it meant they had to watch him all the time so he didn't make a mistake inside the house. And he never did, not once. I have to admit, this is one smart pop, even if he is a little dog, said Lizzie. Maybe we should name him after Einstein, the famous scientist. The Petersons had been trying to figure out a good name for the pup ever since they had brought him home. Mr. Peterson thought they should call him Sock Bandit, since he kept stealing everyone's socks. No one could find a matching pair. Mum wanted to call him Snaffles, because he spent so much time sniffing everything in sight. He was very curious. Charles was voting for Fuzzface. Why? That was the puppy's fluffy coat, of course, but that was more of a nickname than a real name. And the Bean just called him Uppy. But so far, not one of the names had stuck. How about no name? Sammy suggested on Monday. He and Charles were talking as they and the rest of Mr. Mason's class walked over to the meadows to meet their grandbuddies for the very first time. It was snowing again, just a little. Charles was hoping for a white Christmas. He liked it when there was enough snow for sledding during Christmas vacation. How would you like to be called No Name? Charles answered. Anyway, he has much too much personality for that. He needs a good name. Mum said they would know the right name when it came along. Charles hoped that would happen soon. When they arrived at the meadows, Charles suddenly felt shy. What were he and Mrs. Peabody going to talk about? As he and his classmates walked into the main building of the apartment complex, Charles tried to think of some topics. Mr. Mason had each given them a list of questions to interview their grandbuddies with, but that wouldn't take long. His visit with Mrs. Peabody was going to last half an hour. It turned out that he didn't even need to worry about what to talk about. From the minute he and Mrs. Peabody met in the Meadows recreation room, they talked about dogs. I could tell from your letter that you love dogs, Mrs. Peabody said as they sat down with their punch and cookies. She was a nice, smiley lady with white hair. She was wearing jeans and sneakers and a pin in the shape of a dog's head. I love dogs too. Do you have one? Charles asked. He was dying to tell her all about the new puppy, but he knew it was polite to ask questions first. Well, not anymore. Her smile disappeared. When I moved here a month ago, I had to give my dog to my daughter. He wasn't allowed to live with me at the meadows. That's awful, said Charles. He wouldn't have been happy here anyway, said Mrs. Peabody. He's a big dog, a St. Bernard. He needs lots and lots of room. My apartment would have been much too small for Bruno, but I do miss him. I love taking long walks with him every day. He was a good friend, and I could use a friend here. It's a little lonely being a new person. Charles knew how that felt. The Petersons had only moved to Littleton 6 months ago, and he had been very lonely until he became friends with Sammy. Mrs. Peabody reached into her pocketbook and pulled out a photo album. Here's Bruno at Christmas last year. Don't you love his Santa hat? Charles looked through all the pictures. Bruno looked like a great dog. He was really big. He came up to Mrs. Peabody's waist in the pictures. His white, brown and black coat was beautiful, and he had a huge head with sad-looking eyes. I have a dog too, he said, at least for a while. He explained how his family was taking care of the Westie puppy until they could find him a good home. How wonderful, said Mrs. Peabody. You know, I had a Westie when I was a little girl. They need a lot of attention, but they are the smartest, dearest little dogs in the world. She smiled a little sadly. Little Snowball. She was a troublemaker, but I adored her. Snowball, Charles said. That's a great name. I wish we could find a name like that for this puppy. If you like the name, you can use it, said Mrs. Peabody. It would be nice to know there was a new Snowball in the world. She smiled. Although the first Snowball would probably throw a fit, she was known as the Queen of Maple Street, and she didn't put up with any nonsense from anyone. "That sounds like our puppy," said Charles, laughing. "He acts like a big dog, even though he's really little." Charles told Mrs. Peabody more about the funny puppy. As soon as the puppy had started feeling better, he had decided that he was the boss of the whole house. If Lizzie didn't put her food dish down in exactly the right spot, he let her know it. He had a lot of energy and wasn't afraid of anything. Charles was surprised when Mr. Mason came to tell him that it was time to head back to school. He and Mrs. Peabody had been talking and laughing and having so much fun that the time had gone really quickly. Bring me a picture of your puppy next time," said Mrs. Peabody, as she walked Charles to the main door, "and wave when you pass by. That's my apartment on the corner right there," she said, pointing. "They tell me it looks out on the gardens in the summertime, but, of course, right now there's not much to see. Still, I like to sit by the window and watch who goes by." Charles could tell that Mrs. Peabody was a little lonely. "I'll be back to visit soon," he promised. He gave Mrs. Peabody a hug. "Oh," she said. He could tell she was surprised, but then she hugged him back. "Goodbye, Charles. Take care of that little Westie." We're finished. Nah, only joking. We're going to read chapter 5. "Snowball," Lizzie called. She and Charles were playing with the puppy in the backyard after school. They were trying out the new name. The puppy came bounding over happily, his little tail sticking straight up in the air. He jumped up and put his paws against Lizzie's knee. "Oops," she said. "No, down, boy, no jumping. No." The puppy was confused. Did the girl want him to run to her when she called or not? Why was she saying that "no" word? He didn't like it at all. Charles clapped his hands. "Here, Snowball," he called. When the puppy came running over, Charles laughed. "He likes that name," he said. "It's perfect for him. He looks like a little snowball." "He's going to look like a mud ball soon," said Sonny. He and his dogs had just come over from next door so the dogs could play together in the Petersons' backyard. "All the snow we got is melting. There's not even enough for a real snowball anymore." He sounded mad. "At least it's warm enough to play outside," Lizzie said. "Let's see how everyone gets along." Sammy's dogs ran over to sniff the little Westie pup. Rufus and Goldie seemed excited to meet a new friend. "That's Snowball," Lizzie told them. "Be nice, he's just a puppy." Rufus's tail was wagging until the Westie jumped up and put his paws on Rufus's chest. Snowball was so excited to meet two new friends, he thought he'd better let them know who was boss right away. "Snowball!" Lizzie cried. "No jumping on other dogs either." She laughed. "That puppy isn't afraid of anybody. Rufus is so much bigger than him, but he doesn't care. Even Goldie is a lot bigger than he is, and they're about the same age," said Charles. Now Goldie and Snowball were tumbling over and over in the muddy snow, mouthing at each other and growling little puppy play growls. First Goldie would be sitting on Snowball's head, and then Snowball would be sitting on her head. Rufus stood a little way off, acting like the grown-up older dog he was. Once in a while, Snowball would run away from Goldie and start to dig like crazy underneath the picnic table. "Snowball's a terrier, all right," Lizzie said. "Terriers love to dig." "I think that name is going to stick," said Charles. He thought about how happy that would make Mrs. Peabody. If only she could meet Snowball. Maybe it will make her feel better about missing Bruno. I bet Mrs. Peabody would love to meet the new Snowball. "It's not fair that dogs aren't allowed at the meadows." "But some dogs are," said Lizzie. "When my class was there, I saw a sign about therapy dogs visiting every month." "What's a therapy dog?" Sammy asked. "It's a dog that goes round with its owner. They visit hospitals and nursing homes and anywhere that people need company or cheering up. A therapy dog has to have good manners and special training so that it knows how to behave around sick people. I read all about them in my Dogs on Duty book." Charles rolled his eyes. Lizzie was always reading about dogs. Still, she explained everything, every single fact she'd learnt. Still, this was interesting news. Charles had never heard about therapy dogs before. Rufus could be a therapy dog," said Sammy. "He has great manners." "That's true," said Lizzie. "Goldie and Snowball could probably be therapy dogs too. Then Snowball could visit Mrs. Peabody." "I like that name, but Snowball's not visiting anybody looking like that, said Mrs. Peterson. Charles and Lizzie's mum had just come out into the yard with the bean, and she was looking at the Westie puppy. used to be a white dog? Sure enough, the little Westie pup had gotten so muddy that he looked brown instead of white. Goldie was a mess too. Now that you've named the puppy, maybe it's time to give him a bath, suggested Mum. Tubby, cried the bean. He loved bath time. Can we give Goldie a bath too? Sammy asked. She's as muddy as Snowball. Mum started to shake her head. Oh, why not? One puppy or two. How much difference could it make? It'll be a big mess either way. Charles knew that this was exactly the kind of thing that Mum didn't like about having dogs. But if he and Lizzie helped, maybe giving the puppies a bath could be fun. They all went inside to get things ready. Mum ran warm water into the tub. Lizzie ran to the kitchen to get plastic cups for pouring water over the pups, and Charles got some old towels out of the rag bag. Charles brought Rufus home, then took charge of keeping both puppies busy. We'll use the Bean's baby shampoo, said Mum, once they were all in the bathroom. It's nice and mild. She glanced towards the door. Let's make sure that door stays shut so the puppies can't get out. Goldie watched with interest as everyone hurried around. Something great was going to happen, she could tell. Snowball watched too. Somehow he could tell that all this fuss was about him, which was how things should be, but he wasn't totally sure that this was a good kind of fuss. Let's get those pups into the tub. Mum took Goldie from Sammy's arms and gently lowered her into the water, which came almost up to her belly. Goldie didn't struggle at all. Her eyes were full of trust. She looked up at the humans as if to say, I'm sure you know what you're doing. Then Mum picked up Snowball. He was not nearly as easygoing as Goldie. He stuck out his legs, trying to keep Mum from putting him in the tub, and let out a few barks. Tubby, he yelled, leaning in to swish some water around. Stand back, Mr. Bean, Mum said. Lizzie, can you hang on to the bean? Snowball is having a hard time as it is. Finally, she lowered Snowball into the tub. Once he was standing in the warm water, he seemed to relax. Great, said Mum. Okay, let's get scrubbing. The water in the tub had already turned brown from mud. It got even darker when Charles and Sammy used their cups to pour water on the puppies, wetting them all over. Then Sammy picked up the bottle of baby shampoo and tipped it over Goldie. Whoops, he said when he saw how quickly it came out. He began scrubbing as Charles poured some more shampoo, a little more carefully over Snowball. Soon both dogs were all lathered up. Now Goldie looks almost as white as Snowball, Charles said. Goldie was covered in bubbles. Mum let the dirty water out and ran some more. As Charles and Sammy began to rinse the squirming puppies, the phone rang. I'll get it, said Lizzie. Watch the bean, okay? She let herself out of the bathroom, carefully closing the door. A minute later, she yelled for Mum. Phone! Mrs. Peterson wiped her hands on a towel. Keep rinsing, boys, she said as she let herself out. Sammy and Charles poured cup after cup of water on the puppies. It seemed taking forever to get all the bubbies out of their fur. Charles kept an eye on the bean as he rinsed, but it seemed as if his little brother was busy playing with the bath toys that were lined up on the windowsill. When Charles turned to get some towels, when he came back, the bean had an armful of towels. The bean was in the tub, clothes and all, with the puppies. Tubby, yelled the bean. Wash doggy. He poured a cup of water over his own head. Then he reached for Snowball. Oh no, groaned Charles. At that moment, Snowball scrambled out of the tub. The puppy shook himself off, splattering water all over. Oh no, groaned Sammy. What's going on? Asked Lizzie, opening the bathroom door. Snowball took off, dashing through the door and running down the hall. Water sprayed everywhere as he ran. Oh no, groaned Lizzie. Goldie scrambled out of the tub and took off after Snowball. Okay, groaned Mum, when she came in to see the bean sitting alone in the tub, merrily pouring some more water over his head. Snowball dashed by the bathroom door again, leaving a trail of water as Lizzie, Charles and Sammy chased him. It took over an hour to catch both puppies, dry them off, get the bean dried off and clean up the bathroom. By the time they were done, everyone was exhausted. But when Dad got home, he said that Snowball looked and smelled great. Maybe it was worth it. But Snowball had other ideas. Now he knew what bath meant. The chasing part was fun, but getting wet was not. Next time they tried to give him a bath, he would run and hide. That night, Lizzie read about therapy dogs on the internet. Guess what? She told Charles as they were brushing their teeth before bed. The local therapy dog group is having a meeting next week. You can bring your dog in for a test. This could be the first step for Snowball to be a therapy dog. Then someday he could visit Mrs. Peabody. Charles thought that sounded great. He knew that Mrs. Peabody would love Snowball as much as he did. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching this video. And hopefully you can watch the next video, which is chapter 6. And watch out, because this Friday, Ninja time! Ninja Warrior, more videos. Bye-bye.